Hey everybody, welcome and thank you for tuning in. This is my very first podcast. My name is Fernando, and for those of you who don't know who I am a full-time professional psychic medium and spiritual teacher. And I'm also a human being, and I think that is probably the reason why I'm doing this podcast because if you have been to my site or if you've seen any of my content, whether it's on YouTube or social media, Facebook, Instagram, a lot of it is based around the work that I do, which is, being a full-time psychic and medium, and also giving others spiritual philosophy, helping them understand spiritual concepts and ideas, and trying to incorporate those things into their lives. So my podcast, is more about me and the human me. I think I kind of exist, and I think we all exist to some extent. We all exist on different frequencies. We all exist in different forms and in different ways. And there's the Ferny or Fernando, who is the professional psychic medium who's connecting with people, helping them with their issues and helping them to connect with those in spirit, passing on messages of love and healing. There's Fernando, the person on social media or out there who is trying to teach and inform and enlighten people. And, it requires me, for the most part, to be quote unquote professional. But that's not all of me. I exist as a human being. I live on this planet with all of you as well. And I have to deal with some of the same issues that you guys all have to deal with. And a lot of people think that we spiritual teachers, or we people who have these amazing abilities, that we live on like a mountain somewhere and we don't have to deal with the same kinds of issues. I don't have to pay bills, or I don't have to deal with some of the challenges that we as humans face. And that's just not true. I definitely have to deal with the same kind of challenges that you guys have to deal with. But, I also have to, part of my purpose here is to help you guys, to help you to grow, to evolve, to develop, and to be the best you, to be the most authentic you can be, and incorporate any spiritual philosophy that can help you get there. And to some extent, that is my work. That is why I'm here. But I also live in a physical human body and deal with real issues as well. And I think the reason why I decided to do this podcast and why it's called, Ferny After Hours or Ferny, Off the Clock, is because it's just me. It's me as a human being dealing in our everyday world with all of the regular things that we all have to deal with, and how I understand things from a spiritual perspective, but also how I deal with things in a human perspective. So that's the point of my podcast. And in this podcast and in all of my podcasts and future podcasts, I hope to be able to connect with you guys and share some of my own struggles and some of the stuff that I've had to deal with myself. And also just, maybe bring in some guests who can help us to make sense of things in that way. Now, I'm going to be myself like 100%. So if you're easily, and I by nature am not a very filtered person. I'm actually kind of glad that I'm in New Mexico or Santa Fe, because I'm surrounded by people who have no filter. And when they say something, it just comes out. It comes out as insensitive or as direct as it's going to come out. Sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's a little bit challenging to accept. But from my point of view, from my perspective, I've always been that kind of person. I've always been the person who just has that ability to kind of just like cut through it and get to the point. And sometimes I don't have a filter. And sometimes I have to be careful with what I say, because people can become offended or they can get their feelings hurt. And so I try to be purposeful in how I communicate and share and etc. But this is my safe space. This podcast is going to be my safe space for being able to share and communicate with you guys as purely and as unfiltered as I want to be. So if you are easily offended, or if you prefer to think of me as someone who's on this, pedestal, or who isn't, having a human life and deals with human issues, and you want to think of me as just a spiritual person, and, then stop listening to the podcast right now, because you're probably going to get a few shockers and a few surprises. But if you're okay with me just being myself in my purest form without doing work in this moment, then I am happy to have you along for the ride. So the format that I want to kind of carry things moving forward is, I would like to talk about some of the things that are going on in our world today, in all aspects of life. And I know people are like, oh my God, he's going to talk about politics, or oh my God, he's going to talk about religion. And yeah, I probably will, to some extent. I'm not going to do it right now, just because I think we've all had enough. If you're in the U.S., I think we've all had enough politics to have to deal with for a year. But I will at some point. And if I offend you again, I'm sorry. I'm just going to share my truth and my own view. And, if you guys have feedback, great. If you don't, that's even, that's fine too. It doesn't really matter. But I just wanted to connect with you guys in that way. But going back to what I was saying, the format that I want to carry on is, to talk about some things that are happening in the world today. I may talk about a few news stories, both positive and negative, because I'm not one of these people where I believe that you only have to focus on the positive, only think about the good, only think about the positive. Now, granted, it's healthy to focus on positivity. I think it is important to focus on positivity. I mean, when you come from a life that is difficult and challenging, you really need to focus on positivity, on the things that you can be grateful for, because it's going to help you survive and overcome and begin to thrive. But, if you're like me and, you're in a good place, or if you are, you've got a good standing in life and you have a good balance, it's okay to be both positive and negative. And I'm giving you permission. I am right now giving you permission to be both positive and negative. And I'm not one of these individuals who subscribes to the idea that, we're only meant to be positive light and love. Like, that's not why we are here in the physical world. I believe that we come here specifically to live a human life and to understand things from a human point of view. And that includes both positive and negative. The universe is composed of, it's a dualistic universe. It's both positive and negative. It's the yin and the yang. Nothing is ever just, one thing or another. It's never black and white. We have duality here, and we have complexity of awareness, of experience, of emotion. And we are designed to experience both positive and negative here. And so it's okay to have those experiences. It's okay to talk about some of those experiences, even if they are negative. I wouldn't say spend all day, complaining or gossiping about the horrible stuff that's going on in the world, because you'll drive yourself mad. I know if you just sit and watch the news every day, you're going to go nuts, just because there's a lot happening in the world that you care about, but you probably can't change. And to just become upset and enraged by it is going to definitely take you out of your mojo more often than you want to. And every day, I myself have to work on raising my vibration, raising my energy every single day. Not only because it's my job and I have to be in a place where I can, do the work, but also because it's my way of surviving. I came from a really, really difficult background, and I grew up in poverty, and, my mom was a welfare mom, a single mother. And she did the very best she could. So life wasn't easy for us. And the only way that I was able to survive that, and to get to a place where I can say I'm really thriving in my life, is to embrace what was, try to make the best of it, and then work on the things that you really do have control over. And inevitably, the stuff that's hard or the stuff that's difficult sometimes begins to resolve itself without you having to work so hard to fix it. Now, if you're in a position to fix your issues or the things that are going on in your life that need to be fixed, by all means, fix them, because you are responsible for your own life. However, sometimes there's only so much you can do. And in the world today, we've got a lot going on, and there's only so much we can do. And so the best thing for you to do when you feel disempowered or when you feel like you have no control over what is happening is to focus on the things you do have control over, and focus on the things that are working for you, because it will help you to survive, and it will help you to shift energetically. And that's what I have to do every single day. I wake up and I have to shift energetically to align with my purpose, and with the energy that I want to vibrate at, with the energy that I want to put out into the world. It's not easy. It's not always the easiest. I think it's easier when I'm on a low carb diet than when I'm on a high carb diet. For some reason, when I'm consuming more carbs and more sugar, I just feel more tired and more exhausted, and I lose my energy really quickly. But when I'm like on a low carb thing, I get less headaches and my body seems to function better. I mean, just everything seems to function better, which is kind of in conflict with my personality, because I feel so much guilt over animals suffering and having to suffer before they are killed for our food. And so, for many years I used to be a vegetarian, and I was even a vegan and a raw vegan for a while. But I grew up, I'm total Hispanic, and love my barbacoa tacos, and I love my menudo, and I love all this stuff that has meat in it. So it's kind of a conflict there. So I try to bless my food before I consume it, or I try to just thank the animal in my mind. Like, thank you so much for sacrificing yourself and giving me the ability to live, to be here. So, but yeah, every day I have to work on my energy, and diet can help a little bit, but it really comes down to what I choose to do every day, which is I focus on what's working. I focus on what I can do to change things and to help others. And sometimes that means, going for a walk and helping myself to ground and to appreciate my surroundings. Sometimes it means vegging out in front of the television and watching like episodes of The Golden Girls or Friends or Will and Grace or something like that. Sometimes it means talking with friends or chatting with friends and just cracking up over the stupidest shit that you can think of. And, FYI, I'm giving myself permission to curse here. I know there's a lot of people who think, oh, you're a spiritual person, you shouldn't curse, or you should be very well spoken. And I'm a human being, guys. I have to use the bathroom just like everybody else. Okay. I have to wipe my butt every single day, just like every one of you. So I'm allowed to be human, and I'm giving myself permission here on this podcast to be human. Again, if you are easily offended, please tune out of the podcast, because I don't want to hurt any of you unintentionally. But, for me, I think that it's something you got to work on every single day, is trying to raise your energy, trying to get yourself to a place where you can survive and you can thrive. And raising your vibration, raising your energy is something that can do wonders for you. So back to what I was saying is that the format for the podcast is more or less kind of talking about stuff that's going on, me giving you kind of my take or what I'm feeling about it, and also giving you some background about me, because a lot of you don't know who I really am. I mean, you see me on my series, and hope you've seen Over the Rainbow. I think it's a pretty good series. I'm actually really proud of that series, because it's the first time I've been able to just show people what I do in kind of a short version, so people can see it and appreciate the work, but also appreciate that, mediums don't have it easy. When we communicate with spirit, it's not like an episode of Ghost Whisperer where Jennifer Love Hewitt is just standing there and the spirit is repeating to her what they want to say to their loved one, and she's repeating verbatim what they're saying. I'm like, I wish it was that easy. It's not that easy. It takes a lot more work and a lot more effort. And it's a really, really unique skill to have to develop. And so I'm glad that I put that show out there. And if you guys haven't seen it, please go to my YouTube channel. You can also find it on my Facebook page. But Over the Rainbow, my Communicating with Spirit, is the series that I've done about communicating with spirit and talking to those on the other side, and what that process actually looks like. from a third person perspective, someone who's kind of a fly on the wall. So I hope you guys have seen it, and if you enjoy it, great. If you don't, I'm sorry, can't make everybody happy. But I'm really proud of this series because it's allowed me to really show people what actually happens. And so many of the shows nowadays, they're so scripted. You go you watch the shows on TV, Teresa Caputo and Tyler Henry, which I have great respect for because they are working mediums. And even though, they do have to follow a platform and they have to represent themselves in ways that may not be completely authentic to them as people, but they are very good at what they do and they have worked very hard. So I do have a lot of respect for them. But you don't really get to see them in their most authentic way. A lot of that stuff is scripted, or they are put in these situations where they are doing things they wouldn't normally do in real life. So I think for me, I just wanted to kind of give people more of a reality check with what it's like to be a working full-time professional psychic and medium. And so in the show, the series, I talk about my own challenges growing up and what I had to endure, what I've dealt with, times where I've dealt with similar issues that the client that I'm reading for has also dealt with, because it's important for us to relate to each other. And there are times where the reason why I can relate and I can share the message in the way I'm sharing it is because I've been through it. I know what that's like. So I mean, I want to talk about some of my own experiences, what it's like for me doing this work full time, my life in this way. I also want to talk about, my experiences growing up as a psychic medium as well. So I'd like to share all of that with you. And so the podcast is going to be kind of a mix of all of these different things. And I'm sure I'll have a few guests on from time to time because there are a lot of interesting people out there who I am still learning from just by, meeting new people and talking to other people in the field and just meeting other professionals and what they do full time. It's quite enjoyable to connect and learn from each other. So, today, so let's start with some stories, right? Let's start with what's going on in the world today. And I'm actually going to cover 3 little stories here. Some of it, like I said, it's a mix of both positive and negative, happy or sad. But I kind of want to talk about each of these because they mean something, right? It's something that's happening in the world. And so for those of you who don't know, I mean, today's December the 18th. But today, Penny Marshall passed away at the age of 75. And for those of you who don't know who Penny Marshall is, she was this actress, and also apparently was a really great director. And she's most known for her Laverne and Shirley, where this was a series back in, I don't know, when was this? This was like in the 70s, I think. Maybe the 80s, but it was could have been 70s or 80s around that time. I was born in 82, so anything before 82, I'm kind of lost in. And actually, I don't think I actually got into 80s music until like the 2000s. I kid you not. I mean, growing up in the 80s, I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic household, so most of the music that I listened to was probably like Tejano music, or maybe Sunny 90. If you're in Houston, Sunny 99.1, which is more adult contemporary. There was some stuff there that I used to hear or listen to, but I never really got into like 80s music until like maybe about 10 years ago, and I really started to dive in. And now I'm like a huge 80s music fan. But that's the era that I grew up in, so I'm kind of late to the game, I think. But that's okay. It's better to be late than to never show up, right? So the headline today was actress Penny Marshall, who found fame in TV's, quote, Laverne and Shirley, end quote, before going on to direct such beloved films as, quote, Big, unquote, and quote, A League of Their Own, has died. She was 75. I had no idea that she directed Big or A League of Their Own. I love the movie A League of Their Own. That was the movie where Madonna was in it. Rosie O'Donnell was in it, and she's actually really good friends with Penny Marshall. I know because I remember watching them on the Kmart commercials where they were riding around in like some cart trying to sell Kmart. This is when Kmart was like a nationwide brand. Now there's like, they're all pretty much gone. But I loved A League of Their Own. I loved the actresses in that movie. And Gina Davis, I love Gina Davis. I'm absolutely adored Gina Davis, one of the best actresses, I think. But it was a great film, and I had no idea that she directed that film. Marshall died peacefully in her Hollywood Hills home on Monday night due to complications from diabetes, said Michelle Bega, a spokeswoman for the family. Quote, our family is heartbroken over the passing of Penny Marshall, end quote. The Marshall family said in a statement. So, it's kind of it's one of those things where every now and then we have people who we remember and we think of. And, I think in the last few years, we've had a lot of great people leave the physical plane and kind of go on into the other side. And, it's sad because you think of these people in, like, Whitney Houston and Robin Williams, another one, and just some of these people that so much talent, so much amazing talent, and even though there's so much left behind, they left behind a ton of stuff. We also miss them. We also are sad because we're going to miss out on all the future stuff that they would have created. But everybody's path is different. Everybody goes through life and deals with things very differently. And sometimes those people who are on the stage, who you see as, being famous and having all this money or having all this attention and everyone loves them, you don't think that they have issues. Most of us don't think that they struggle. But they do. They do struggle. And some of their struggles are way more consuming than the ones that we have to deal with in the quote unquote normal world, right? So, we have the easy get up, we have families, we have to take care of our families, go to work 9 to 5, or go to work, and then come home, deal with our families, and then go to sleep, and then go do the whole thing all over again. And for most people, that's a majority of people's lives. And these people, even though they have the luxury and the ability to not have to live in that way, they do work hard and they do struggle with issues. In Whitney Houston's case, she struggled with different addictions. Robin Williams, he struggled with depression. And so, one of the funniest people on the planet, and he struggled with depression. He was very sad and depressed. So we never really know where people are when we see them on screen. We just assume that they're successful and it's happily ever after, right? But that's not life. Life isn't a happily ever after scenario. It's just it's a stage for us to express ourselves and to be who we are meant to be here. And sometimes it can get hard for us, and people react in different ways, which is why I mentioned it's so important that if you really want to thrive in life, and if you really want to change things, you have to vibrate in a higher way. You have to align with more positive or higher energy, because it will make a change for you. It really will. I know it's definitely impacted me. And most days I really do appreciate and enjoy what that has done for me. And so, I think if anything, today, look at your life and look at the things that you really can be grateful for, and really be grateful, because you just never know, right? You never know, what life could be like, or how much worse it could be if some of those things weren't in place. And I think sometimes we take some of the blessings we have for granted, and we really don't appreciate what we've been given, or what we are able to experience on a regular basis. So here's another story. This is kind of sad. It's a little bit upsetting. So Brazilian healer accused of sexually abusing 300 women. More than 300 women have accused Brazilian faith healer João Teixeira de Faria, also known as John of God, of sexually abusing them, according to Brazil's state media agency, citing the Department of Public Ministry of the state of Goiás. The women from countries around the world were seeking spiritual healing, the statement says. The accusations first aired December 7th on the Globo TV program quote, conversa con Bial, end quote, during which 10 people came forward with their allegations. At least 335 people have contacted the Department of Public Ministry with accusations. But Andre Fernandez, civil police superintendent in Gaia, said authorities have only received 15 formal complaints so far. Prosecutors say the allegations against Texura include rape. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but I think it was in 2010. Oprah Winfrey, she traveled to Brazil, and there was a man out down there called John of God, and he's been featured in a few documentaries and shows where he apparently had the ability to to heal. It was almost like a psychic surgery. He called himself a medium and a psychic, and he could perform these psychic surgeries. And it was kind of, I mean, if you've seen any of the documentaries, some of it's kind of gross because it shows like him kind of digging around in someone's like abdomen and pulling out all kinds of gunk, without like surgical tools or anything like that. Now, as a psychic myself and as a medium myself, which I at this moment, I cringe to even say that in the same frame and in the same context as this man, because it just disgusts me what has happened with this. Because I believe, God invented doctors. I believe that, doctors exist for a reason, and the medical sciences, they exist for a reason. And if you're sick or if you're struggling with something, go to a doctor, get yourself checked. You'd be surprised. A lot of people come to me with their health questions, and I have no problem answering those questions with my own understanding of my own personal opinion. But I always tell people, look, I am not a licensed doctor. You need to go to a licensed doctor. You need to ask your doctor these questions, because I am not a physician. I don't know some of the stuff that they do. I cannot treat you. I cannot, recommend courses of treatment. I can just tell you what I think from a opinion standpoint. But, I believe God made doctors. And so I think it's important to go and get help from medical professionals. Now, there are times where even medical, traditional medicine fails us, and it doesn't really get to the root of the problem. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people throughout, the years where they've gone to the doctors and they've gone to different specialists, and they just cannot figure out what is wrong, or they can't get help for the issue because the doctors don't know. And I understand that. And I understand that, in those cases, you kind of are desperate and you want help and you want someone to get you through the issue, to help you to no longer suffer. And so I can see why people would travel all the way to Brazil. And, I think hundreds of people were seeing this man every single day traveling down there to be healed. And there are people all around the world who are also called, faith healers, or they're energetic healers. There was a guy who he came out on a show on TLC just a couple of years ago. I think it was called The Healer. Amazing show, really, really great show, and really cool guy. I think I like his energy quite a bit. But he doesn't really touch people so much as he just kind of does it from like a detached perspective. So he's kind of doing it in his own mind, in his own energy field. But the story from what I was reading earlier, and the news is that these people were going to this man so that they could be healed, and he was kind of manipulating a lot of these women into sexual favors and eventually, in some instances, rape. And there are about 300 different accusations going on there. So it's kind of disgusting, and it's kind of painful to hear that, because here you are, I myself, I put myself out there as a professional psychic medium, and I do want to help people. And it's very painful to hear when someone who has this much, attention, who gets this much attention, who's even being, he's got Oprah coming down to see him, and he's over here behind the scenes doing these horrible, atrocious things to other human beings. And it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And it just brings me back to the idea of, it's like the Roman Catholic Church. I grew up Catholic, and, I'm going to talk about religion a little bit here. And I don't mean to disrespect the Catholic religion. I mean, I grew up a Catholic, of Catholic faith, and I grew up in a Catholic family. And, after some time, I made the decision, my personal decision, that it just wasn't enough for me. I love the tradition. I love the idea, but I have my own ideas about Catholicism, which we may talk about on another episode. But I have my own ideas. I have my own feelings on Catholicism. And it wasn't enough for me. But, now we're hearing all these stories about these priests and these, clergymen who abused women and both women and men, girls and boys, children. And I can't help but relate to that. And if you don't know my story, I was sexually molested when I was a kid. And I was molested by a preacher, someone who was a preacher. And or he wasn't necessarily a priest. He wasn't a Catholic priest, but he was a preacher. He had a congregation and he traveled around preaching to people. So I was molested. I was taken advantage of as a child. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't even know what any sex or anything sexual was until I was exposed to that at such a young age. But I remember going through that and not feeling like I had any power or control over what was going on and what was being done to me. And it's very painful to know that for some people, they go through similar experiences, and sometimes it's even worse. It's even more traumatic than what I experienced myself. And I think there's a show on Netflix. There's a documentary, a really good documentary, called the, let's see, what is this documentary called? I'm going to figure this out right now. There's this documentary on Netflix about these nuns, Humanitarian Nun Murder. It's called Who Murdered Sister Kathy? The Keepers. That's what it's called, The Keepers. And it's a documentary about this, Catholic order. Where it was a school that was run by a priest and a bunch of nuns, and some of the girls were being, raped and molested, and they just blocked it out of their minds. And then as they got older, they started to remember, and a lot of this came out. And it's just like, you have such respect for these people who are in authority, who are the spiritual go-to person, and they abuse the power that they have, and they take advantage of it. And it saddens me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I personally believe that we shouldn't have gurus. We shouldn't have people who we look up to, who are the end and the be all. I believe that we all are God's in human form, and we have a direct connect to the universe, to God, to the divine, to our higher power, our higher self, to that which is source within us. I believe we have a direct connection. And sometimes when we give up that power and we place it in the hands of mere mortals, which are other human beings, sometimes they take advantage of that. Sometimes they don't. There are a lot of amazing people out there who really do help so many people, who really do help to heal, to cause people to grow and to develop and to be their best selves. And I ascribe myself to be one of those people. But, I believe it's important that we all keep our own counsel, that we all follow the path that is best for us, and that we make sure that we are 100% on board with whatever it is that we're being taught. Because if we're going by somebody else's choices and somebody else's preferences, and we're giving up our power. And when you give up your power, it's a very, very dangerous thing, because that is the moment where you have dishonored yourself as a godly being in human form, and you've essentially ascribed to someone else's will. And it's important to never, ever do that. It's great to have people you can go to, look up to, you want to follow, you appreciate, you respect, you learn so much from. We all have our teachers, but it's also important that you keep your own counsel, and that you remember you are your ultimate authority. And if something isn't working for you, or you aren't comfortable with something, then it's your right and it's your obligation to honor that. So, I think many times when we, as humans, over the course of many centuries, we've given our power up over and over and over again to others who abuse that power. They take advantage because we have unrealistic expectations for other human beings, and we have to remember that we're all human. We are all suffering through a physical life, but we know some of us can find a balance and can work through that and still help others, and some of us don't. Some people become corrupted by those opportunities that they are given. And so it's important to keep your own counsel. It's important that you know that you are your highest authority, and don't give your power away. So, I don't mean to tell you you shouldn't believe in other people or you shouldn't follow, leaders, but just remember that you are your ultimate authority. Do not give your power away, because you are your truest connection, your purest connection to source, to God. No one is more connected to the divine or to God than you. There have been others who have come before us who have shown us how to do this, other masters, other teachers from the past, but we are our truest connection to the divine. So now, I want to share one more story before we kind of come to the end of our podcast show today. And this is a happy story. I know, happy story. You're like, Ferny, no more sad things, no more bad things. I kind of wanted to talk about that. I saw that, and it was so disappointing to me to saw that, because I've heard of this man, and I was like, oh, this sounds like I would like to go down and travel and see this person myself. Not for myself, just to see. Because when you hear about someone so fascinating, so amazing, you're like, well, why not? Why not go and see who this person is and what they do? So it's just such a disappointment to be able to hear that today. But Milwaukee bus driver honored for helping homeless man get food and shelter. A Milwaukee bus driver is being praised for the way she helped a homeless passenger get some needed assistance. In October, bus driver Natalie Barnes started talking with a passenger named Richard, who told her he has been homeless for a week, since the place where he had been living was condemned. When he asked if he could ride along for the night and stay out of the cold, she agreed. Quote, "At some point in our lives, everybody needs help," end quote, Barnes said in a Milwaukee County Transit System blog post. Quote, "I wanted to do what I could to help Richard in some way. At one point during her end quote. At one point during her shift, she took a break at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and offered to get her passenger a bite to eat. During another break, she reached out to a friend who helped get Richard into a temporary shelter. Barnes and Richards became friends during that 6-hour bus ride. Now he has her cell phone number, and they keep in touch." So, I think it's so easy to forget that we humans can be the most loving, compassionate, generous beings on the planet. It's easy to become jaded and to become just completely surrender to some of the pain that's out there, some of the stories that we hear about. And there's a reason why I kind of gave you the news in this order, is because crap happens. Shit is happening all over the planet. Stuff is not. So there are a lot of things that are not working in the world, and there are a lot of painful things that we are going through as human beings. But then there are also a lot of amazing things that are happening every single day that you will never hear about. Now, granted, majority of the news I think is focused more on what's going wrong in the world, but it's nice to know that there are human beings around us every single day who are helping each other, who are just doing something to give the other person a helping hand. Back when I worked at Starbucks, we had a gentleman who was he was homeless, and he used to come and spend the morning on our patio, and we always gave him a cup of coffee, and he would, load up his cup of coffee with sugar and cream and all that other stuff. And so he would, use the bathroom. He was always a very respectful man. A lot of people have this idea that if someone's homeless, or if they're a quote unquote transient or something like that, that they lack manners, or they don't have, they don't have a sense of decency. But, all human beings are human beings. And this guy, he was just in a position where he lived on the street. And a lot of people would pitch in and help him every single morning, someone bought him something to eat. And it got to the point where we just started to give him food. Now, I probably could have gotten fired for feeding him at Starbucks just because, I was giving him whatever we could spare. And customers were buying him food. But who cares? It's like, this guy is hungry. It's like, I'm not going to let the fear of being fired because I gave somebody a sandwich. I'm not going to let that stop me from feeding someone or letting them starve to death. That's just not going to happen. But this guy, he was just a really cool guy. And he used to come in every morning. He used to chill with us. Very respectful guy. And he... This was his life, and he needed help every single day. So we helped him. We did our very best to help him, and that happened every day. And people would come into the store and they would complain and bitch us out and tell us how we were horrible and we were the worst Starbucks ever, And that person didn't even realize that there's a lot of other things going on behind the scenes. Or we're human beings too, and sorry we messed up your latte order, but there's a lot more going on than just coffee here. Which is, I think, is one of the things why I love Starbucks so much, because one of the things that drew me into working for the company was because I felt that we were more about the connection between the customer. It was more about humans connecting with each other than it was about making a dollar and trying to mass produce coffee as efficiently as possible. So a lot of good things happen every day. And if anything, if you want to just offer someone a hand today or give someone an opportunity to receive some help or aid, then by all means do it. Now, I wouldn't say go and help the person that's always asking you for help, because they probably become so dependent on it that you're just going to enable them to want to ask you more. But, if you meet somebody today, or if you see somebody on the corner of the street who is asking for money because they need some change, if you feel like you want to give them a helping hand, whether you agree with it or not, because I know a lot of people do not agree with helping people, or, they're only going to go and buy booze, or they're only going to do this, or only going to do that. You can't control how others are going to be in the world. You can only control what you send out. And if your intention is to help somebody and give to others or show a gesture of compassion, that's it. That's what you're responsible for. You're not responsible if they take that and they go to the liquor store and they buy themselves, a bottle of beer or something like that. That's on them. But you've done what you were supposed to do, which is to show how humans can be compassionate. And that's what you're entitled to. That's what you're obligated to do if you believe that we should help each other and we should be there for each other. So, well, I am so happy to be able to do this with you guys and to have this time with you guys, because I feel like I can talk to you guys in a way where I don't normally get to talk to on some of my videos and on some of the Facebook Lives where I'm so busy answering people's questions. But I'm looking forward to the holidays, and now Christmas is next week. For those of you who don't celebrate Christmas, happy holidays. But I'm looking forward to Christmas time. I'm gonna be traveling to see my family, and it's great, because even though I'm only gonna see them for like one day, it's totally worth it, because those little moments are gonna be meaningful once that's all said and done. And those little moments where we get to sit down and have dinner together as a family, or just joke around with each other or get on each other's nerves. I mean, that's the stuff you're gonna remember, right? But I hope you guys have an amazing holiday season. I hope you guys have an amazing Christmas. And I love you all, and I will see you on our next podcast. I'll talk to you on our next podcast. All right. Until then, and be sure to find me on Facebook. I'm actually on Facebook Live. If you go to my website, you can get to everything from my website. So just go to fernandomarone.com. If you're not already on my website, and please follow me on Facebook, also on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, because that helps me to put more content out there. And I hope you enjoy this podcast. And I send you the warmest wishes and the happiest new year. Until next time, bye-bye.